Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Weather in 5 days and 5 minutes. It's Monday, the 1st of July, starting the second half of 2019 as we move right along. And what a start it is in terms of the weather we are seeing today. Take a look at the eastern satellite loop. It pretty much says it all across the Northeast, down into the northern and mid-Atlantic states. It's just beautiful, dry Canadian air. We have a fairly unusual upper low that is sitting off the coast of Nova Scotia. And this is the upper air trough that kicked a shortwave through here on Saturday and produced severe weather across Pennsylvania, Maryland, particularly into New Jersey. The second part that came through on Sunday produced severe weather from New York City north and east. So that got Long Island and much of southern New England during yesterday afternoon. So everybody seemed to participate in thunderstorm activity at some point over the weekend. But we are certainly seeing the payoff today. And if you look at just where these high clouds are that are moving north, northwest, south, southeast into southern Virginia, North Carolina, that pretty much marks the line between the bone dry air that is sitting over the northeast and the more humid air that is just out to the west. Now, we're going to see that humidity start to come up again as we move into Tuesday, but I just want to emphasize that during this week, from northeastern Virginia through southern Pennsylvania to New York City, the Hudson Valley, into southern New England, and that of course includes Long Island and New Jersey, we are going to spend much of the week enjoying pretty decent weather from the standpoint of sunshine. There will be what I would describe as a minimal amount of thunderstorm activity to deal with. Some days more than others, and there will be days where we probably won't see much of anything. Now, in terms of high temperatures for the rest of today, of course, it's beautiful. So we're seeing most highs. Let's put a range of 80 to 85 from the corridor from Washington, D.C., all the way up to Hartford and even up to about Boston. Actually, right near the coast, it'll be more like upper 70s to around 80, but just an absolutely beautiful day. Now, we're going to warm up and turn more humid on Tuesday, so we're looking at highs probably, give it a range, same geography, 85 to 90. You look down in parts into Maryland and northeastern Virginia, Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. You're looking at lower 90s, south central, southeastern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, up around 90, and then you have middle to upper 80s as you move further north. There's the chance that we could see some scattered thunderstorms on Tuesday. Wednesday, I think, is a day where we get a slightly drier shot of air, and that will lower the dew points a little bit. And I also think that Wednesday might be the day where we see little, if any, shower and thunderstorm activity. Gets pretty warm down in Maryland, 90 to 95. Low 90s in southern New Jersey, near or just over 90 southern Pennsylvania, upper 80s to near 90 everywhere else. Thursday, the 4th of July, again, there might be some scattered or isolated thunderstorms, mostly in inland areas late in the afternoon and evening. But I really think for the vast majority of you, much of the time this week is going to be rain-free. Temperatures upper 80s to low 90s just about everywhere. We'll take it to Friday and we'll do it one more time, upper 80s to around or just over 90 again. Some sun, some clouds. It will be on the humid side and the chance for some isolated thunderstorms. Now, going into the weekend, this is where we may see a bit of a better chance for showers and storms as a weather front settles overhead and starts to buckle a little bit. But I don't think it's going to be a widespread thunderstorm activity situation. They'll be scattered around, and they'll be scattered around in clusters during the afternoon and evening, but you'll have some sun to enjoy some outdoor time or beach time in between. Upper 80s to low 90s. We're in cruise control, and that frontal boundary is probably going to stay reasonably close on Sunday, but perhaps on Sunday we could see maybe a little bit more shower and thunderstorm activity. Again, none of this means a washout by any stretch of the imagination, with temperatures in the mid 80s to around 90 degrees. The bottom line here, folks, for the next for the rest of this Monday through Friday period. It is going to be fine much of the time for whatever outdoor activities you have. This is a big vacation week, of course. The 4th of July is on a Thursday. Many of you have built a very creative vacation, perhaps. You may have started it last Saturday and taking it to next Sunday. You've got most of the time where the weather is going to be fine and dandy to do whatever it is you want to do outdoors. Check out website posts later today, of course, and we'll have our regular YouTube live stream tonight, probably at about 6 o'clock Eastern time. And of course, weather in 5 days and 5 minutes, back on Tuesday morning. Hi everybody, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Monday, July the 1st, 2019. The second half has begun. So for you snow lovers, it's all downhill from here. And actually, I'm going to show you something a little later on that's going to really make you just throw your hands up in the air, philosophically speaking anyhow. But we have a weather week ahead of us that on the whole, I would probably describe as quiet in the sense that it's typical early summertime weather. We are not, I don't see anything in terms of widespread outbreaks of severe weather this week. Yes, there will be pockets of severe weather, certainly, that we'll be dealing with. But in terms of a widespread outbreak, not happening. As far as the weather across much of the country, it's really kind of typical early July. For us here, we're certainly enjoying in the Northeast down into the northern mid-Atlantic states today some utterly delightful air that resulted from a big storm that is out, well, relative to the time of year anyway, a big storm that is out just south and east of Nova Scotia now and churning away in the Atlantic. And I actually have, I brought up the satellite view with Canada in perspective, and this really works for us today because it kind of shows what's happening with respect to where the jet stream, the southern end of that jet stream is, and what we will be seeing along the way as we move toward through this week. Now, first off, the system that is south of and east of Nova Scotia is pretty obvious there on the lower right, and this brought through some pretty wicked severe weather across for my area, for Long Island. I was actually in it yesterday while it came ashore off Long Island Sound. I was right along the North Shore in Setauket, New York, doing, of all things, going through an old, one of the oldest cemeteries on Long Island, looking at some of the grave markers going back to the 1600s, part of the George Washington's spy unit. There's a famous story behind that, and there's actually I believe it's a Netflix series called Turn, which kind of takes you through it. There's a little bit of let's call it creative or poetic license that they use, but on the whole, it's a very interesting and fascinating period during the Revolutionary War. I'm going through these gravestones, and you see the dark clouds come in, and of course the thunderstorm was threatening. Got in the car and was driving back along toward Port Jefferson along the North Shore, and we came through to a place where trees were down, and I had an exploding electrical transformer on a telephone pole next to me going off. So it was fun, and there was actually quite a bit of damage. 2 lives were lost in this particular thunderstorm. And I think it just kind of goes to the idea that when you have these thunderstorm threats in the summertime, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get them, and sometimes these things do tend to blow up. The upper low that caused all this, that swung a trough through here, was unusually strong for this time of year, and that triggered off these thunderstorms, even though we really weren't in an overly tropical or humid air mass, but the dynamics were insane. And you had a lead storm that came in a little after about 1 p.m., a little after lunchtime, and then that kind of fizzled out. but then the second band fired up with the trough itself, and that's what caused the thunderstorms. But my point is, when you look at all of the, when you look at the flow from Canada here on the satellite, what we're going to be dealing with here is disturbances coming through every day or two, and they're pretty obvious there. There's one across the northern Great Lakes now, back into the Dakotas. There's a second one that is swinging through southwest Canada and almost, but not quite, to the U.S. border. And there's a big upper low there up in north central Canada that's sort of driving all of this. On the upper right, you can see the clear skies that's over Greenland, and that will, I will kind of explain this and give you a hint of what's going on. But there's a blocky look to the atmosphere, and it's probably a blocky look that if we were sitting in January, the snow lovers would be quite happy. The bottom line is that with respect to the upper air pattern, we're kind of on the southern edge of the jet stream. We're going to get these systems coming through every couple of days. When one goes by, as ahead of it, it'll get humid. That's what we're going to see in the northeast and in the mid-Atlantic states tomorrow. Some thunderstorms maybe tomorrow evening. A little shot of dry air between it and the next one that will probably approach for later in the week, for Thursday, for the 4th of July. It doesn't look all that particularly potent. The next major change, I think, is going to come over the weekend, and that is probably the setup for the best chance for showers and thunderstorms. But for a lot of the northeast and the mid-Atlantic states this week, much of the time it'll be rain-free and some pretty decent weather for the 4th of July. Look at these dew points at the moment as of 6:06 Eastern Time. Hopefully they'll pop back up. I've been having a little bit of trouble with this map today. I've been having issues with the data, but these dew points are in the 50s for all of southern New England, across Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Temperatures in the low to mid 80s right now, and you've got dew points in the 50s down into Virginia and West Virginia, and further south as you get into North Carolina. Even here you have dew points in the upper 50s, although we are seeing some temperatures up in the low and middle 90s as you head down towards South Carolina, and it's particularly warm down in southern parts of South Carolina and in through southern Georgia, where you've got temperatures in the mid to upper 90s. But now here's where you get into your tropical dew point. So this low offshore did a really good job in pulling down some drier air. It's not necessarily, to a certain extent, it's cooler air, but this time of year, the sun at its highest point in the sky, the air in Canada is dry, but it's not really all that cool. Meanwhile, here's your surface low sitting just east of Nova Scotia. It's a 998 surface low on the plot, and that is moving slowly eastward. You have the next weather system. It's back through the western lakes, and of course there's a stationary boundary separating those dry dew points in the 50s to low 60s from the tropical dew points that are south and west of there in the southeastern part of the United States and down into Florida, where you get into your dew points that are in the upper 60s and lower 70s. So that humidity will be advancing eastward, and the stationary front, which will probably just be a weak warm front that goes by, you'll hardly notice it. I don't think there's going to be much with that warm front as we transition over to higher humidity during the day on Tuesday. As far as severe weather is concerned for Tuesday, I just want to show you that there is a east-west band, a marginal risk of severe weather across Pennsylvania, back through the lower lakes, and back further into the upper Mississippi Valley. The eastern extent of that marginal risk makes it to about western New Jersey. We might nudge that a little bit further to the east. It wouldn't be at all a shock, but for now, this is what SPC is doing. And I'm going to go back to day one, which is today, the area for this evening. Slight risk up in northern Iowa, southern Minnesota, a little small portion there, southeastern South Dakota. It's a very narrow area of slight risk. You've got a larger area of slight risk up in Wyoming, and through looks like much of the eastern half of Montana into western North so you get a flavor for what's happening here. Take a look, and I'm going to show you the teleconnections. And Chuck, thanks for mentioning it to me. This is a time of year where I really don't look at the teleconnections very often, but this weekend and into next week, you have a positive Pacific North America index, ridge building in the west, a negative NAO through the whole 2-week period. That gets, for this time of year, a reading of minus 100 isn't too shabby. So that's not a half bad NAO that's negative going through the weekend and into next week. Look at this EPO. That is an off the wall. That's a minus 200 reading in the wintertime, is a strong negative reading. So relative to the time of year, being that this is summertime, that's an off-the-wall reading on the teleconnections. Again, it gives us a snapshot of what the models did, but it gives you an idea of what's happening atmospherically, where we've been seeing a tendency for these weather systems to move eastward. It hasn't really been all that warm when you consider the time of year. We're seeing temperatures that are in the 90s where they're supposed to be in the 90s. It's the areas further to the north where the heat has been, you get these hot days, but they've been kind of borderline hot. For us anyway, gets humid, it gets borderline humid. With that one day on Saturday that was really, really very humid. But the rest of the time, it's just been kind of on the moderate side. And of course, today it's bone dry. Now watch with the upper air. I'm using the European model tonight, but take a look at the upper air, and you were swinging the trough that went through on Sunday, that arm that swung off the New England coast and produced those thunderstorms from my area east. Upper low sitting in the Gulf of Maine, heads out towards Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, lifts up. So now the jet stream goes up here as we head into Wednesday and Thursday. The southern edge of those westerly winds is along the Canadian border. You've got this upper low in central Canada, troughing out in the west. And gradually, as we move through Friday and the weekend, those westerlies are going to start coming back down later in the weekend and early next week, with troughing along the east coast and a trough into the west, which eventually, according to the European anyway, lifts up. The ridge builds up in the west toward the end of the forecast period, and a vigorous upper low drops down into the area just north of Lake Superior. So you've got a flow here that comes pretty much from northern Canada all the way down into the plains, into the Great Lakes, and eventually gets its way into the northeast. You have an upper low that's sitting up east of Newfoundland. You've got blockiness across Greenland. Not a half bad looking pattern for the snow lovers if this were the winter time, but it's not. But what it does mean for us is that it does move weather systems along, and it also will eventually mean for some chances for showers and thunderstorms, but I think we're going to be in pretty good shape for much of this week. So here's the, we'll take a look at the GFS. This is the new GFS run. And of course, you see its reflection of the radar tonight with showers and storms across the Great Lakes, which move eastward, and then we get into some of that late Tuesday evening, some showers and storms being indicated here. And then Wednesday, I'm thinking that Wednesday's going to be a day where there's not going to be a whole lot of activity. It'll shift down into Virginia and North Carolina on Wednesday, and also back to the middle Mississippi Valley. Much of the day will be a mix of sun and clouds. Temperatures will be in the mid upper 80s to low 90s. And then for the 4th of July, looks to me like any thunderstorm activity will be widely scattered and inland. The next front is still a ways away. Friday, perhaps a chance for some late day storms. And now as we get into the weekend, we're going to have a cold front on top of us. When I say on top of us, I'm talking about right along the East Coast, from Boston to New York City, Philadelphia, down to Washington. That boundary zone is going to set up right along there. So I think you're going to see a better chance for thunderstorms late Saturday to Saturday night, and then again on Sunday, where a low wave forms on the front. Now this is, you've got this negative NAO at work, so you're going to see a low that's going to try and form. I'm hoping that it doesn't do it this way, where we get into an onshore flow, because that'll make things a bit on the cool side. Perhaps the frontal boundary will hang around a little longer. But look, the bottom line for much of this week is that the weather is going to be fine for anyone that's interested in the summertime activities. I think you're certainly okay through the daytime Saturday, and we'll throw up some question marks after that with regards to Sunday. We do have a hurricane, about to have, I believe, Barbara is a hurricane. I'm sorry, yes, top winds 85 miles an hour, and there it is on the Pacific side. We've been talking about how there's been a general lack of activity on the Pacific side, but it's finally gotten going here. This is a fish storm, and it may become a major hurricane because it's still pretty far to the south. It's got a well-defined circulation here. You can see how much it's gotten better organized through the course of today, and we'll probably see this achieve major hurricane status. It will also disappear long before it gets anywhere close to Hawaii, so there's no worries there. In fact, it will reach peak intensity during Tuesday and Wednesday as a major hurricane, and then weaken as it starts to gain some latitude. Right now it's down, still down closer to 10 north than it is to 15 north. And again, this is just for meteorological interests only that we're showing this. There's nothing going on the Atlantic side for us to worry about. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the current radar across the nation, and we can take a look at some of the pop-up showers and thunderstorms that are going on in the southeast and back in the lower Mississippi Valley and parts of the Tennessee Valley. A little bit of pop-up action in Florida. A little bit more than that in extreme southeastern Louisiana. And then you've got the